Hey everyone, it's Norm from Tested.
And it's Jeremy from Tested.
And welcome back to Projections, where this week, well, we have some exciting news to talk about. Because 2019 is a big year for VR, even bigger than we realized.
That's right. We didn't realize it would all be compacted into 1 week, but hey, celebration. Let's do it.
Yes. This morning, Valve is announcing the Valve Index, which is their new virtual reality headset. And I was able actually to go up to their headquarters in Bellevue to use it, to go hands-on with the Index.
So now I have a lot of questions because I was not able to go up there. Now, we all saw the photo that they released a couple weeks ago of the physical IPD adjustment and the underside of the headset. And we saw maybe some prototypes last year that were leaked. But this is it. You've seen the final unit.
Yeah, so let's get some information right off the bat. This is a high-end VR device. They're going for what they say high fidelity on the high end, and it will be available for pre-order in May, shipping by end of June in the US and EU initially, kind of their own rollout. And part of that's because Valve is doing this themselves. They're not partnering with another manufacturer. They're working with hardware partners and component partners, but they are delivering this as their own headset. It's not HTC, it's not LG, not Acer, it is Valve.
So this is a ground-up look. Now they handled a lot of the initial development of the R&D for the Vive for HTC.
Yeah.
This is just them following through on their second design and doing everything themselves.
Now, there are a lot of things that we want as VR fans in a headset, and I think Valve addressed a bunch of them. So obviously from their development standpoint, talking to some of the engineers, they centered around a panel first, right? High fidelity panel. So what's on the inside of this are two 1440 by 1600 displays.
Same as the Vive Pro.
It is the same as the Vive Pro and also same as the Oculus Quest.
Right.
What's different though is that these are LCD displays.
So they're not the same panels.
They're not the same panels. With LCD displays, they are RGB stripe. So if you do the sub-pixel math, it's approximately 50% more sub-pixels. Very high fill factor with low screen door effect. But the really unique thing is that you have a high refresh rate. The first time we've really seen on a VR headset, 120 frames per second, 120 hertz, or 144 hertz.
But let's just start at 120, man. We thought that 90 was the baseline. That's what the Rift and the Vive have had for years now.
And on the Oculus side, you're actually saying that 72 and 80 are good enough.
Right, exactly.
For desktop VR.
So they're actually going lower. So they're going to. Will it support 90?
It will.
Okay.
So everything's backward compatible with this headset, and the controllers, which are more commonly known as Knuckles controllers. They're calling them the Index controllers. The idea is that you can buy this piecemeal, and everything will be backward compatible. Even though there are some interesting just design changes from fundamental just hardware standpoint on the Index, starting with this display.
So you saw games at 120 hertz.
I saw games at 144 hertz.
Can you tell the difference?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, it is. I would akin it to, call it akin to not visual clarity, but tracking clarity, movement clarity. It's the difference, on phones, for example. We've seen tablets.
The iPad Pro.
Yeah, iPad Pro moves at more than 60 hertz, 120 hertz, and scrolling is smoother.
That's true.
And once you see that smoothness, it's tough to go back.
Really?
Honestly, on old headsets, tracking, I think, is totally fine and comfortable. I'm not nauseous on 72 hertz. I'm not nauseous on 80 hertz. I'm not nauseous on 90 hertz. But with 120 hertz and 144 hertz, it's like I've downed 2 cans of Coke and I'm hyper aware.
So
there's a attention clarity.
It's no longer a nausea question, motion sickness question. Now it's just further depth of immersion.
Immersion is really, I feel more immersed in those spaces.
Because it's more like reality.
Yeah, because I'm moving around really quickly, spinning my head. I'm playing Beat Saber, or even they had Boneworks there, and I was really moving quickly. The tracking can support it because this is still a Lighthouse-based
Beat Saber, you played
tracking
that.
system. Played Beat Saber.
So I could imagine that would be pretty cool because you're moving fast with your hands and your lightsabers and everything.
It's a stronger sense of presence, I think. And it really is akin to being groggy and sleepy. The difference between that and being just on caffeine.
Now, you need the PC to push those frames, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't do any kind of temporal upsampling.
No, it doesn't. And Valve has their own version of their space warp and time warp to compensate. In Steam VR, you can always adjust scaling, right? Rendering scaling, because it is a higher resolution
Right.
display. So you can render it lower than 100%.
In order to hit the frames.
In order to hit the frame rate, or you can say, I want to run at 90, I want to run at 120,
Right.
or 144. They're calling it beta for 144 hertz because of such a technical limitation on the panel. I think that LCD panel at 144 hertz, you do see light tearing. I didn't notice, it wasn't overtly noticeable, but it was like minor bit here and there. Oh, okay, a little bit there, a little bit there. So they're not calling that a final release. That is a beta release. 120 is the new standard for index.
Is 144 like, is that divisible by 24 or something?
Oh, you asked me to do the math now. I think it is. Actually, it is.
So maybe that's good for movies. I don't know.
Yeah, or just extra smoothness.
Right.
Yeah. Don't quote me on the math. On that part. The other interesting thing about the display is the field of view. Now, they're getting a little bit more field of view on this headset, doing two things. One, remember on the Vive, you could move the headset away and close to you. There was a little bit of eye relief, right?
I felt like that was for glasses support, right?
Yes, you got to pull the sides and then kind of turn the dials, and that lets you move it. That's a built-in feature of this headset as well. With one dial, you press it in, and you get to move it basically about 1 centimeter front or back. Now the difference between that 1 centimeter, Valve says, is up to a 30-degree field of view difference. They really want you to push this headset as close to your eyeballs as possible. And the difference between a Vive and the Index is about a 20-degree field of view. Field of view is tricky.
When both are completely...
When everything is close to you.
Okay, that's pretty good.
And they're also getting that additional field of view because of the actual optic and display design in the headset. They're canted, they're angled out. They're not parallel now. The display and the optics now angle out together. They're still at the same degree for both sides, but pointed outward just by 5 degrees. And that 5 degrees actually adds a lot.
But is there less stereo overlap
There is
on the inside?
less stereo overlap.
And is that a bad thing?
Not for that I could tell on the half an hour I got to use this headset. And this headset doesn't do the eye tracking. It doesn't have accommodation. So the type of stereo you're going to get is essentially the same type of 3D that you would get on existing first-gen headsets.
Do you remember the HP Reverb? They did a similar thing, not with the angled displays, but they pushed the the perspective out a little bit, so there was less stereo overlap. Was it similar to that?
It was similar to that.
Okay.
Not as egregious, I think, as on the HP Reverb, from what I can remember. And that's actually a really good point in terms of comparison. The HP Reverb, if you recall, had a 2160 by 2160 panel for each eye.
Even higher,
Even higher. That I still think is the high bar from every headset I've used in terms of crispness of display. This, because it's the same resolution as the Vive Pro, and because they're spreading it across a wider field of view, I didn't feel like it was night and day in terms of the number of pixels.
Got it.
But I will say, very, very low screen door effect. Definitely, because LCD did not have the same artifacts that you'd see from an OLED or a pentile OLED sub-pixel arrangement.
You were telling me that the refresh rate is remarkably improved too, that there was an 11 millisecond refresh?
The persistence, low persistence.
Right.
Yeah. They told us that in finding this panel manufacturer, they wouldn't say exactly who's making the panel. One of the attributes that got them to this LCD panel was the low persistence, the time it takes for them to cycle between images. And it was almost an order of magnitude faster than on the Vive. So moving around, coupled with their tracking, coupled with that 120 hertz, moving around, you get no smearing whatsoever.
So you would need an even lower persistence in order to do 120 hertz.
Yeah, and that was really the difference. No smearing at all. Using a demo like in big screen, sitting in the middle of a movie theater, really interesting demo. I've used big screen a lot on the Go, on the Rift, on the Vive. This really felt like being in an IMAX theater. The screen was full center. I didn't have to turn my head at all, and I got extra periphery, all the benefits of that light bounce on the side of the walls. It was all there.
Wow.
That extra field of view really helped.
Well, tell me about the audio, because I know that it has integrated audio. Oculus has decided to embrace like an embedded thing that goes inside the straps, which is not all-encompassing, certainly not noise isolating. Tell me about the audio solution that they did.
Yeah, so you saw the pictures of that headset, and it looked like, frankly, like these, where you have to snap them in. There's no snapping at all. They're not over-the-ear headphones. They're tiny speakers. They're tiny speakers that sit off your ear and are essentially the same kind of speakers you would have in your room, but on your ear.
So they're
over your ear.
intentionally not isolating.
Exactly. Exactly.
But they are over the ear.
They're all over the ear, and there is a little bit of a sweet spot. So if you move the speaker, like you will see it move. It's not a small sweet spot because everyone has different size ears, and I could move it slightly over. But once they're in position, one, the sound quality is fantastic. Playing something like Beat Saber, the low end, the bass was there.
That's great.
Turning the volume all the way up, which you do via the menu because there's no on-headset volume adjustment.
Okay.
It was almost too loud on the max volume.
Really?
And there was sound bleed. If I was in a room and other people were using the headset,
You can hear it.
I could hear it. They were adjusting the volume as well. There is sound bleed.
Okay. That's fine.
But the quality of sound was it was different. It did not sound like headphones. It definitely didn't sound like earbuds.
Really?
It didn't sound as directional as what you would find, what we use with the Go in terms of it coming from the front.
Which lacks low end almost entirely.
Yes, it felt more like being in the space. The demo I did was a vacation simulator. And in one of those menu areas where I was on the beach, for example, I could hear the water. It felt more full.
Great.
It felt more like there was directional audio and spatial audio. It just felt a little bit more all-encompassing around me without having anything resting on my ear. And Valve says that's not software at all. That's just hardware design. So there's no special software needed, no extra processing needed to make that sound work.
Is there a headphone jack if you want to use earbuds
There
or something
is.
else?
Inside the front, you can pull off the front faceplate, and there is a 3.5 millimeter jack.
Just like the Vive.
That you can, wire and use your own headphones if you so choose. The faceplate itself is connected via 4 magnets, so very easy to pull in and out. And that design, they're actually releasing the CAD for. So if people want to design their own facial interfaces, there's an aftermarket.
Really?
For that.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And it also has this space in the front. Now, we saw that on these leaked photos originally. I thought for sure they had a plan for this. You said it's a little vague. What is that? There's a cavity, essentially, where you get these stereo cameras on the Vive Pro.
Yeah.
With a USB jack?
It's a USB Type A jack, USB 3 bandwidth and power.
Okay.
And Valve call it the frunk, which it's like the empty space in the front of a Tesla.
Yep.
But they said they included this as a moddable space, which to me looks like a space for like a Leap Motion,
Right.
But with nothing designed in mind. So one of the experiments they had showed that they'd done in-house was having some type of display, so the outside world can see a display, like just a basic,
Not
dot
like
matrix type display.
Right, not like an LCD panel.
Which theoretically you could do, I
suppose.
guess,
Okay.
I suppose. But it's not for tracking, it's not for anything right now.
It's a moddable headset.
It's just a moddable thing. And
Interesting.
the CAD for that will also be released so people can develop whatever they want.
That's
for
interesting.
that.
This is a company that knows the modding community's power, right? And so maybe they're trying to open this up to the extent that that same community and innovation can be adopted into their headset.
Yes. Also open to the modding and development community are 2 world-facing cameras on the front, which we speculated could have been for world tracking. It's not. The tracking is still lighthouse based. You're still putting base stations up in your room, 1.0 or 2.0, and the tracking is great as always, but this allows for visual pass-through. They're global shutter cameras. They are full color. And they're going to allow developers to experiment this using OpenCV for any type of pass-through type experience.
Is it used for any of the setup process like it is on the Rift?
It's not.
Okay, so you're setting it up the same way as before. You put the headset down, you walk around your space with the
As far as I could tell.
Okay.
Yes. They will be releasing a pack of experiments that they've done in-house to make use of these world-facing cameras, which are more kind of visualizations of the real world. So it tells me that it's not fully crisp stereo imaging. It is stereo, but they're accenting edges. They're kind of doing some post-processing on it.
With the Vive, it wasn't stereo. Like it was a single camera, and it was really used as a small screen that sort of attached to your controller.
The Vive Pro did have stereo.
It did.
Yes. And these are positioned differently in different locations. So the field of view is wide, not as wide as the full display field of view, because even in their experiments, there was some vignetting around that pass-through. But they were able to do things like tell how close a person or other object was and let that then fade in or change the rendering.
Oh, that's
of
interesting.
That. Yeah.
So do you think it'll be possible to do a stereo perspective correct rendering of the real world using those lenses?
I wouldn't put it out of the question.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, but that's not what they're shipping this kind of as a future-proof looking hardware feature.
More toys to play with.
More toys for developers to play with, because this, again, is a high-end enthusiast headset.
Tell me about the knuckles.
Yes, so the headset is one thing, and they're gonna sell that independently for $500. So you could buy that by itself. You could also buy it, or you can buy the new controllers by themselves. And they've been very public about the development of these controllers, which we know as the Knuckles controllers.
We had an earlier prototype on the show.
Yeah, they are really proud of the fact that they've packed a ton of sensors on these controllers, from IMUs to force sensors to capacitive sensors. They say 87 different sensors on these controllers, each that allow for not only hand presence, but finger presence, finger tracking.
Right.
Now, it's not finger tracking with skeletal modeling. This is the way you would do with a Leap Motion, or finger tracking that you would have with the inference on the Rift, on the touch controllers, because they track all 5 of your fingers.
Right, so you don't, like with the touch controllers, you just lay your finger on things and it knows you're doing that. This is almost more of an analog sensation from what I gather. You can curl your fingers and it senses the evolution of that curl.
And they did that not having physical grip buttons like on the touch, because everyone's hands are going to be different. I wondered, like, why didn't they just have 4 different analog physical buttons for me to grab, but everyone's hand size are different. And so they're constantly running calibration as people are changing and using the knuckles to optimize for the fingers. And some of the developers they had there from the Alchemy Labs, for Vacation Simulator, the Boneworks guys, they experimented with finger tracking, and I'd say no one's really got it down just yet. I think most of the actions we're seeing in games right now are still going to be grabbing and trigger, but the pinky and the ring finger, they're kind of extraneous. Now, what you can do, and something Valve had a demo for, is you can do rock, paper, scissors. You can't do rock, paper, scissors with the touch controllers.
You're touching nothing.
Yeah.
And how do you know scissors? Because only 2 fingers are down?
Only 2 fingers are down, right? That's a pretty good demo, right?
That's interesting, yeah.
Yeah, rock, paper, scissors is only possible with something like the Knuckles, the index controller.
It also, like, they have gotten rid of just the touch controller, and they have included an analog stick, which is great, because I love that about the touch controller.
Yeah, they actually have both. They have a touchpad that's more of a vertical touchpad.
That's the thing. It's more of like an up and down, like you said, like a linear thing.
But it does allow for left and right, and it is a button itself. So you have that.
Physical button?
No. Haptic button that gives you...
So it senses that you're pressing
force,
harder. Okay, got it.
And then it gives you haptic feedback. And they also have now, thankfully, analog stick as well.
What about the grip controller down here? Is that still there?
No, there's a trigger button, but there is no grip button.
Okay.
The grip is just capacitance and force sensing.
I think that's a good thing, because people in my house constantly hit this accidentally.
Yeah.
And if it has an effect in game, they don't intend it.
I think it's going to be interesting, because it's almost like that change in the MacBooks, when we went from a physical trackpad, pressing it, to just something that was sensing force and then giving you haptic feedback. There were a bunch of demos there. The Moondesk 3.0 demo, which people have seen online, shows the analog nature of the grip, the force sensors. So you're grabbing things, you're pinching things, and you would see the sensors kind of raise up and down.
How does it know you're pinching?
Because you would use the trackpad.
Okay.
And the trackpad has a force sensor.
Got it.
And you would use the analog controller here.
I see.
And so you're pinching.
Got it.
With 2 fingers. But it's not the same as something like a physical button. And at times, I kind of wish there was a physical button on this.
On the
grip.
stalk, or whatever that is.
Exactly. On the grip. But it will work well enough. And they did have some content to show as well. Valve has they've partnered with Cloudhead Games, and along with the Index, when that ships, they'll be releasing this Aperture Labs, Aperture Hand Test, I think they're calling it, where it's very much in the Portal world.
Oh, cool.
And you interact with robots, and you play rock, paper, scissors with it. It's very funny.
Is this coming out along with
the Index?
Okay.
And they did say later this year, they will have announced and released a flagship VR title.
What's that, Norm?
I don't know. I don't know. It will work with the Index, of course, and it will be backward compatible with previous generation VR controllers.
Everything else. So anything that runs on basically that can download a Steam game, a Steam VR game, and run it. So the Oculus Rift, the original Vive, and the original controllers, it will be backwards compatible.
Right.
Okay.
That's right.
But will it run best with the Knuckles controllers?
That's my assumption. We just don't know any more information from now. It's still a wired system, of course. It's connects to your PC. It's a 5-meter long cable. There's no big breakout box now. It's a small, I think, breakout connection that then connects to your computer, USB, DisplayPort, all that jazz.
Okay.
It is still base station setup. So this is for enthusiasts who have the space, who want that fidelity of tracking, who want that fidelity of visual experience, and have the PC horsepower.
Yeah, what horsepower do you need to run 120 on something, even like as simple as like Space Pirate Trainer?
Well, I think it really depends on the content, right? One of the developers said that they were running on a 980 at home, and they were getting 120 hertz, no problem.
On what?
On like a Beat Saber game.
Really?
Yeah, a game that does not require a ton of post-processing, ton of effects, you can run 120. It's really the high-end games, lots of geometry, lots of post-processing.
But even a 1080 will be great. Like you can do it on a 1080.
Yeah, and of course there's that scaling, of course. You don't have to scale always at 100%. It is, I think, noticeably an LCD display, not just because of the RGB subpixel arrangement, because of the contrast. I played a 2D game. I played Inside with the gamepad.
You're talking about the black levels not being very, very deep.
Yeah, not super deep compared to some OLED displays that we've used.
But is that something that you notice when you don't have anything to compare it to? Like,
if you're not doing an A/B comparison right there.
Right.
If you know it, you know it.
Yeah.
I think like Beat Saber is a great example. It's bright, but there's a lot of dark areas.
Yeah.
It played just like Beat Saber. It looked just like Beat Saber. Wider field of view now, super smooth.
Right.
On caffeine.
The Rift S is also LCD. It seems like more people are heading that direction now that you can do low persistence with LCD, and you get that full 3 subpixels per pixel.
Yeah, and Valve was very upfront in acknowledging for VR to get adoption, there needs to be some type of low-cost option. There needs to be some type of low-friction option, and there needs to be a high quality of experience, tracking, visual fidelity. They are solely going for this right now, high fidelity. $500 for the headset, $750 if you want the headset and the controllers, $1,000 if you want the headset controllers and the base station 2.0.
Right.
You can buy the Knuckles controllers themselves for $280, but that's a high-end experience, and that's still a lot of setup, and it's not necessarily as easy to get new people on board. If I have friends over, I still need to calibrate for them, get them to teach them how to put on those Index controllers.
Right.
It's tethered. It's kind of the opposite of what Oculus is doing.
Right, and you're right. Maybe there's two different diverging paths. I mean, there are people who reportedly left Oculus last year because they want to push the PC stuff forward as fast as possible. So there's a market for that, for sure, and I'm excited by that. Now, you mentioned that you can buy the Knuckles controllers by themselves, and you can buy the headset by themselves. Can you also buy the Lighthouse 2.0 by itself?
I believe you can buy those by themselves as well.
Okay, so like if you wanted to upgrade a la carte, a smaller investment over time, you could do that.
Yes, yes, they have packaging for all of that. And over the past week, as I've been thinking back on my time using this and what the Valve people at the sale, I was thinking, does this feel like a VR 2.0 experience? Or what would feel like a VR 2.0? Does this fundamentally change what my experience in VR? I think the only aspect of this device that might be is the refresh rate, the smoothness.
Sounds great.
Of movement. That is great, absolutely great.
Yeah.
And the field of view, absolutely great.
Right.
I don't know yet if the Index controllers are a game changer in terms of VR interaction models, or if that's the right path going forward, because people are experimenting with hand tracking, being no controllers at all, or are physical buttons, they still have a place in the world for things like grabbing? I don't know yet. That's going to depend on the content.
Are they calling them Index controllers? They're not Knuckles controllers?
They're not. Those are just the early names.
But at the very least, there will be fewer holes in walls and fewer broken TVs because people won't be throwing their controllers anymore because they're locked onto your hands, which I think that's a good thing.
And for those of us kind of really looking forward and seeing what on the Facebook Oculus side, what their labs have put out, they've put out experiments in eye tracking, in moving focal planes, right, on their displays. This doesn't have any of that, right? This is not HDR. We've heard Valve engineers talk about what a world changer HDR would be on the display.
Yeah,
this isn't that yet.
I just saw a fireworks display in real life, and I was thinking, this you cannot do in VR yet.
And you still can't do it. This, I still feel like is like almost what the Pro should have been. and what the Pro should be. Because it really feels like a 1.5, a really solid 1.5. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm going to get this.
Yeah.
But there's more to come, I feel like.
Sure.
There's definitely more to come. And if you think about the Vive Pro came out last year, pretty expensive, like $700, $800 just for the headset. More than that if you want everything included. This is $500 for the headset, $1,000 if you want everything.
It's an investment for sure.
It is totally an investment.
Tell me about the comfort. How long were you able to wear it? How much does it weigh?
I don't know exactly how much it weighed, and they didn't tell me.
Did it feel comparable to existing headsets?
It felt very comparable to like a Vive Pro.
Okay.
And the comfort-wise, it uses the ratcheting system in the back
Okay.
to get a really nice grip, and there will be a pad included for people with different size heads to get that as close as possible. The eye relief was good, so it could fit my glasses as well. Very soft pads all around.
Soft pads?
Yeah, very soft pads. Yeah, so very comfortable. In the demos I use, it felt like a Vive Pro.
Okay.
Yeah. And definitely the sound, not being on ear, felt very good as well.
Okay, and what are the benefits of the Steam 2.0 tracking if the Lighthouses versus current gen, in case people don't know?
I think it's bigger area, it's more objects tracked, and that really is I feel like the optional thing for people who are upgrading probably just the headset and the controllers. And I'd say even might be able to wait on the controllers too. Because the headset might be good enough for now until Valve announces their flagship game.
See, I'm excited about the controllers. I have grown to not like these because they're so bulky. I mean, we always said there were some things that this would lend itself to better than touch, like maybe a sword.
Yeah.
But honestly, I don't like holding this. I miss the analog stick a lot. So I'd be very excited to get the Knuckles controllers just to get slightly more parity with this, even though there's not exactly parity now that it has like a vertical slider.
And it does have backward compatibility, the Index controllers, with the whole library of VR games. There's software in Steam VR for you to custom control and tap into.
Even if those developers don't recompile, it's compatible.
It's compatible.
Great.
I just don't know if I would prefer that over like what this has given me so far.
Right.
Yeah. That needs to be tested, and we'll hopefully get more hands-on time and be able to review that unit. But that's all I know about the Valve Index.
And you're getting one.
And I think I'm getting one.
That's exciting.
We'll have more VR stuff. It's a not only packed year, maybe a packed week for VR coverage. Stay tuned for more from us, but until then, we'll see you next time.
Bye.